your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I am Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D, and it's great to have you with us. And we have a very special guest. You know that I say that at front of every program because every guest is special. Dr. Alan Stephen Lycka. We're going to talk about the rule of the game and the secret to living a fantastic life. Doctor, welcome to the program. And do you prefer Dr. Alan, Mr., Your Highness, sir?
I think Dr. L summarizes it all. It's nice and simple, and people won't trip over it too much.
Tell me about, and you're a doctor of what?
I was a doctor of dermatology. I was one of the leading cosmetic surgeons for over 30 years. I stepped away in 2019. I wrote a best-selling book and started a syndicated radio show. So my life is totally different than what it used to be. But what my whole life is about is to try and put positivity and happiness into people's lives. And that's what I've been doing all my life.
Well, we are grateful for that because we can use all of that we can get with and it's funny too, you hear people talk about during these times. And there's that old Chinese proverb or saying that says, may you live in interesting times. My observation, Doctor, is we always have. There hasn't been a time when we haven't lived in interesting times. Would you share that observation?
People can look at the clouds and see great clouds, or they could see clouds with silver linings. It's really your choice. And I think people would be much better off to see a cloud with a silver lining than the other way around. Life is either a bowl full of cherries or it's not. You can have lemons and make lemonade. What would you sooner do?
Well, I'm kind of thirsty right now. So I'd rather have the lemonade. It is a perspective that I know there are a lot of people who are challenged by that because they are looking at the world. They're looking outside of themselves. Would you say that maybe that's where the biggest issue is you're looking in the wrong direction? You should be looking within?
If you turn on 10 minutes of the news, you're going to be very depressed and pessimistic. I think you really have to use a new rudder on your ship, and the rudder has to come from within. You are 100% responsible for everything. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens. Life is steered by your own perspective. You choose what you see and you see what you do. Life is all up to you, and you have to choose where it's going.
Mm. Well, I worked for 15 years for a Christian station, and that word you used would be considered a profanity. The word responsibility, taking responsibility for one's life. And I found that that's starting to shift a little for some. And again, I'm not being critical of people of faith by no means. It's just that we're not puppets on a string being manipulated by forces we don't understand. And again, that's just my observation. Your thoughts?
I agree. I think, if you're religious, God gave you free will. He gave you the ability to choose. He gave you the opportunity to choose and move forward. And that's where you really have to use that free will. It's truly a gift. It's something that's deeply down inside of us, and it's deeply ingrained in us. And that is something we have to really live for and choose.
Hmm. I don't know if you founded this organization. I like the name of it because the book we're talking about today, we're going to get into this, the rule of the game. You wrote it for the International Order of Fantastic Professionals, or OFP.
Yeah.
It sounds like a mystical thing, something that was developed around the Middle Ages, kind of thing. These people would meet in the basement of a castle somewhere, or what have you, and have candle lit and so on and so forth, and have great conversations. But it's open in that respect to the professionals, and you wrote this book for them to help professionals retain their elite status within their chosen era of expertise. And I find that fascinating. Talk to us. Can you share with us a little bit about that organization, that
Sure, I
order?
certainly will. Well, the International Order of Fantastic Professionals is an elite invitation only alliance of impact visionaries who are shaping the future of business, health, arts, media, and social change. It exists to elevate purpose driven leaders, amplify their voices, and accelerate their collective influence on a global scale. It's based on purpose, passion, and possibility, and collaboration, communication, and acknowledgement.
Mm.
And these are things that I think are lacking in this day and age. And I think this is how people rule the game. They surround themselves by a tribe of transformational allies. And as a result, they are acknowledged and further their message in that tribe and to the world.
Mm. Now, we're not going to get into a lot of the stuff that a lot of people would think, okay, well, how do we then defeat those people that are using the rules to their benefit and da da? Because to me, that is again that distraction. They're going to do what they're going to do. It doesn't make any difference with what we do in that regard. Because is it not true that there are certain things that are quite honestly out of our control? And the
It
only thing that we,
is, it
yeah, go
is,
ahead.
but there's a way of turning them into your control. There's a
Okay.
way of so-called helping yourself with the system that exists.
Hmm.
And most people that have become celebrities, most people that have been top of their niche have realized there's something that takes them there. Now, the one thing that's the hardest to manipulate is drive. You
Mm.
know, either you have drive or you don't have drive.
Hmm.
And drive is what gets you out of bed. It's what you put your feet on the ground every morning. It's what you get you moving. And that drive is often intrinsic. It's a hunger. And I think most people that are successful have drive.
Mm.
It's something that's a sine non. It's something that's a given. But once they have that drive, a person can decide their message. And
Yeah.
once they have a clear message on things, once they have a clear purpose, they can communicate that purpose to the world. And
Yeah.
once they do that, they really position themselves to be the top of their niche. In business, that's called a unique selling proposition, or
Mm.
UPS, or USP rather. I'm putting my initials backwards. In the world, it's usually not a selling proposition, but a unique educational proposition. That's what clearly differentiates you from somebody else and somebody else from you. That is how often a business will succeed and transform themselves without having to compete directly, because they're different than every other business out there.
Right. Right. You know, and I won't go into details with this. I shared this with you off air about a situation, and when I got a phone call and then I got subsequent emails, the comment was made to me when I shared this with someone else. Oh, I'm so sorry that they hurt you. And I said, but they didn't, because I didn't own what they said. I didn't take it in. Do you find that that's one of the other issues when, because there are critics everywhere, you and I both know that. And you can't please, as the saying goes, you can't please all of the people all of the time. And you have to be true to yourself. Do you think that may be part of the issue when it comes to wanting to rule the game and so forth, and having that fantastic life, that we allow ourselves to take in stuff that isn't ours, that it's somebody else's?
Well, exactly. I think, love him or hate him, Elon Musk is not deterred by anybody or anything that's said to him.
Hmm.
He literally rules his own game. He literally sets a pace that he stands up for, and the only person he accounts for is himself.
Yeah.
That's the only person he answers to. And that's true of many great people in this day and age. They literally only have one person they answer to. Most great people they piss somebody off by 10 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, they're not doing very much. And otherwise, they just keep on going and keep on moving forward despite all the distractions. I've always thought life is like being on a great football field. And the
Hmm.
only object is to get from one end to the other. But there's all these distractions along the way. There's this shiny object on this side and this shiny object on this side. And you truly can make a difference by just staying forward and keeping focused.
Yeah. And that's what we try to do as much as we possibly can, is to stay focused on what it is that's important to us. And I'm not going to say that in the future I won't, maybe for a short time, take in something someone says, a critic or what have you. But what I'm going to do my best to do is remember that that's not mine. And that was one of the things, the phrase that I actually used with this person I was talking with. I says, I don't own it. It's not mine. And then I processed it a little further, saying, what was said or written was coming from a person who is dealing with a lot of other stuff I have no idea about, but I know they're dealing with their own stuff, and they're only projecting. That's all they're doing, is projecting. And so if it's a projection, I think about this. If you think of the context of a projector, the projection is, it's just an image on the wall, and and you can block it or you can walk away from it, that kind of thing. And I
Well,
choose to.
and I think that's the key, and a lot of this has to do with fears that we
Ah,
have.
yeah.
And really, fear means a lot of things, but also it mainly means, according to Zig Ziglar, it means false evidence appearing real.
Mhm.
And that is something that we have to realize. 95% of what we fear never come true. So there's the false evidence, and our mind blows it out of proportion. And then we live according to those things. Here's what you had as somebody threw some mud at you, and it hurt for a while.
Hmm.
But then that false evidence could form its own thing, and you could have that mud on your soul forever, or you could just wash it off and walk away.
Yeah.
There's always going to be another opportunity. The only time you don't get opportunities is when you close them off.
Mm. Wow. Wow. That's profound. And I tell you, you're still in the arena of dermatology, if you will, or
Well,
cosmetology. You
once
know,
you're a dermatologist forever.
well,
But I quit practicing dermatology in 2019.
hmm
Back then, I was working on people's external self. Now I'm working on their internal selves. So, it's not much of a step differently. I'm still working on making people bigger and better, but by changing the spotlight from one arena to the other.
Yeah, that's exciting. That really is. We're talking with Dr. Alan Lycka, and we are discussing the concepts that you can find in a couple of books that he has written. One is, of course, Rule the Game. The other is The Secret to Living a Fantastic Life, and Pillar Pillars of Success as well. And we'll continue that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, along with Dr. Lycka. Dr. Alan Lycka is my guest and co-author of a multinational, international best-selling book, "The Secret to Living a Fantastic Life." I've often said that our lives, on one level, are perfect because we are perfect. We were created in a particular way. We are who we are. I think about the biblical passage, "Be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." And I pondered that for a while. And there's a passage in the Old Testament that says, "I am that I am." And I'm thinking, well, then that means that to be perfect as the Father in heaven is perfect doesn't mean to be right or wrong, good or bad. It means just to be who you are. Would you agree with that?
Exactly. And I think the distraction occurs when we're young. You know, I look at my 2-year-old grandson, Finn, and he is really happy. Every day he gets up and says, "This is going to be a beautiful day." He's playing baseball. He throws the ball in the air by himself and he swings and he misses. And he said, "Miss that one, try again." you know, Somewhere along the way, we miss that one and we
Mm.
forget that trying again is an option. We forget that trying again is something that's integral to living. We forget that one and we realize that it's so hard to do that. So every child that's 2, 3 years old has the world as their oyster, and they are perfect. Along the way, friends, colleagues, kids knock you down,
Yeah.
and you get this negative image of yourself that you can't achieve. You apply, like for myself, I first time I wanted to get into medical school, I applied to 30 medical schools and was rejected by every one. Now,
Whoa.
I could have chosen to apply for dermatology schools, the same thing happened. I applied to several and was rejected by many. Uh, then I tried again and was accepted by the University of Minnesota, where I ended up.
Mm.
So the answer is you can choose to have your fate or you can make your fate. And I think the smart people make their fate. They don't let their fate be determined by those elements that are negative.
Mm. Dr. Alan Leck is my guest, and you are listening to Tell Me Your Story. Dr. Alan Lycka is with us talking about Rule the Game, and I have some questions. We like to define terms on this program. First of all, what game are we talking about? It's probably self evident, but please explain.
When I'm referring to rule the game, I'm talking about business life. I'm talking about the game you're playing 80% of the time in your world. It's about being the top of the business world in your particular niche.
Why would you recommend or suggest, and again, this is through the title, that anyone would want to rule the game? What
You
does that
know,
mean?
well, I have a syndicated radio show, much like you do, Richard. And on the show, I've interviewed over 2,000 guests in my lifetime. And I've realized that those who truly rule the game are those who have people that come to them. People follow them. People admire them. People literally, they have their own herd, they have their own tribe, and people acknowledge them that way. So it's much easier ruling the game than being a follower.
Okay. Well, a couple of topics I wanted to touch upon, and one is uh, having to do with it was said at one point that information is power. Nowadays, you start to question that information because of the sources and so forth. You have a different take, a different spin on that, that authority is the new currency, if you will, in this world. Of course, being the authority in your field, as you were just referring to, is more powerful than any marketing budget. It opens doors, drives influence, and builds instant trust. My question in regards to that statement is what kind of an authority? Or maybe we should define the word authority and then say, well, what kind of authority? Because we've got a lot of people who are in positions of power, but I don't consider them authorities because I'm looking more at their character than I am at, what they're doing.
I think an authority is one who engenders followers just by who he is and what he says. His actions and deeds speak louder than his words. And those are really what command respect. And I think that is how a person becomes a true authority in their field. In my book, for example, I give several examples of people who I consider to be authorities. And those are ones that really have become authorities by their own right. I think in the field of finance and business building, Warren Buffett stands up above almost all voices because he started as a nobody and he built himself into being a company that's grown by 20% a year for over 40 years. So his voice stands out there as a voice to be reckoned with. He, by his actions and words, has become the authority. Another one is Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek started up as a nobody, and then he did a TEDx talk called It Starts with the Why, and wrote a book on It Starts with the Why, which really commanded him to be one of the foremost coaches on leadership in the world. That single book, that single TED talk, has propelled him to be one of the strongest voices in leadership everywhere. And that TED talk has become either the number one or number two TED talks in all the world,
Hmm.
all
I'm
from a simple message.
hmm,
It starts with your why.
I'm going to have to look that one up. That
Yeah.
that
So
sounds fascinating.
So that is a simple one. He also wrote an amazing book almost 20 years ago called Leaders Eat Last. Fascinating concept. But in a military concept, who eats first? The soldiers do.
Mhm.
The leaders eat last. Why? Because they're doing all the heavy lifting. They're doing all the work.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask one other question in regards to authority. Uh, what about, and again, I realize this is somewhat subjective, but what about the ethics, if you will, and or the morals and or the values of one who may even just claim to be an authority, but isn't really? Just because they're the CEO, from my perspective, just because you're at the top of the pile doesn't necessarily make you the authority. Is that true observation?
Well, in my book, I go through the things that you look for when a person's an authority. I do not name titles as any one of them.
Hmm.
And that I think is something that you need. A title is something that's earned,
Hmm.
not something that's thrust on a person. And I find the true leaders are ones that don't use titles as a designation to carry their authority. They don't walk into a room and say, I'm the CEO, so you must listen to me. They walk into a room and listen to everybody first, gather their opinions, and then uh, become the authority as a result of using their opinions to push themselves forward.
I've seen a lot of biopics of presidents down through the history of this country. And there are certain scenes where the president of the United States stands up to an individual who is questioning them, all right, and says, "What, be remember who you're talking to, the president of the United States." And I hear this and I'm going, so, what's your point? You're my servant. That kind of thing. You are here to serve us, not the other way around. Now I understand that this person has to make hard decisions down through their term and so forth. But it's kind of like what you just said about the CEO. Just because you call yourself the CEO doesn't mean that you carry the respect, the appreciation, if you will, of those people who quote unquote are following you, or maybe who are working for you. I love your analogy of the military, where the soldiers eat first, and it's the officers that follow. To me, that's rather interesting, and that actually leads into my next question, having to do with the people. I am beholden to thousands of people who have put me where I am here now, actually talking with you. I didn't get here on my own. Certainly, you referred to drive earlier. I do have the drive, and I've been doing this for a long time, but I didn't get here by myself. That seems to be a very important aspect. That, for example, standing on the shoulders of others or even of giants. Can you?
I think it's very important that you need to surround yourself by others that are of equal or greater talent than yourself. I think being in a room full of people that are clapping you on the back and just saying that, no, that's not what you want. You want people that lead you to a higher level.
Mhm.
I think that's what you'd like to surround yourself by. I think people follow you for a reason, and they follow you because of your message and the people you bring on your show. The people that I've always said on my show, I'm in the edutainment business.
Yeah.
I educate people and I entertain them. And I think that's a large part of being in your seat. What you do is it's the edutainment value that you offer that get people to follow you.
That's an interesting point that you make, and I I'm going to say that our actions as individuals, your actions as you an individual, and what you have shared not just here but throughout your career, especially since 2019, but certainly before, um, speak much louder than the words that we say. So our words and our actions better line up. It's one of those situations for me anyway, where sometimes I mean, I think sadly, I think of former Governor Dukakis, who was running for office, he was accused of womanizing, and he said, "No, no, 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 no. Just follow me. You'll see." And they did see. And it's like he got his comeuppance, which was kind of sad in a way. But people end up doing that in all walks of life. Like I said earlier, during the heyday of televangelism, I heard all of the railing on the evils of the world, the sin and so forth. And one in particular was going on and on about immoral behavior, sexual behavior, and what ended up bringing him down. And I'm sitting here listening to his ministry during the program that we were running, and I'm going, "You better be careful." There's a wonderful Shakespearean phrase: "Me dost think thou protesteth too much." So, do you think that we really, in your perspective, need to make sure that how we're living, the things that we are doing, match the words? Don't do as I say, do as I do. No, listen to my words. And if I'm not doing what I'm saying, I need to be called on them.
I think you need to be consistent. I really think a leader has to be consistent in what he says and what he does. He can't advocate for somebody and not do what he advocates for somebody. I think that inconsistency will draw attention to them and take away from his authority.
Mm. We're talking with Dr. Alan Lycka, and we're talking about Rule the Game, and we're talking about it here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, along with Dr. Alan Lycka, and I want to ask you about this group. I can't get over the name of the. I would. There's a part of me that's going, I hope there's a nice suit of armor that goes along with this order. That would be cool to wear, and a nice sword, and that would be fun. This order of fantastic professionals. But I want to ask you, what is and or who are, in a general sense, the elite?
I've been able to bring in a number of people, and I don't want to go through all of them because I don't think that would be fair because everyone could be an elite if they have the right credentials and stand by themselves. For example, Mark Victor Hansen, co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, has joined me. Celebrity expert promoter Harlan Bowl has joined me. Former NFL superstar Marcus Ogden has joined me. And so on. A couple of celebrity actors, Sean Kanan of The Karate Kid and Kevin E. West, who's a veteran actor, has been in many things, and many doctors have been in my group as well. So the thing about this is if you think you have the standards to set yourself apart or want to set yourself apart, our group offers the media the visibility. We can't give you a coat of arms, but what we can do is give you a crest that you can
Hmm.
carved by our hand carved craftsmen that you can gladly show to the world that you're a member of this elite organization. We also put your message on bulletin boards for a month. We also do elite marketing and networking in a red carpet gala event where you will be shown on the red carpet as being the elite in the world. So again, something there. We also have soirees where you speak, and that's recorded so you can use that as well. So we use our society to help be a megaphone for you and promote you once you prove that you can be part of our elite group.
Hmm. Well, we'll talk about that probably another time. But joining the elite, you can either join it or be forgotten. And quite honestly, and I struggle with this myself, Doctor, because I get a lot of comments, and I have over the years of doing this and other programs over the years. Oh, you should monetize. You should monetize. You should monetize. And I understand what they're saying. I do. However, they talk about, well, why don't you just make it available for like, oh, I don't know, maybe 99 cents an interview or a monthly subscription of 9.99 or whatever the. And my perspective is, right or wrong, I don't want there to be a barrier between you, for example, Dr. Lycka here on the program, and those who want and need this information. I don't want there to be a barrier. I don't want there to be an obstacle. There are lots of other ways without creating obstacles. For example, we are on SoundCloud, we're on YouTube, and anybody can go there and listen to and or watch these programs, these podcasts. Um, and that's kind of where I've been this whole time. And I don't do a lot of social media stuff. I don't know about you. I'm a band of one. I'm a one man band. And so to be a part to get on all those social media sites and post this, that, and the other thing, every single interview. And I sometimes do 3 to 5 interviews a week, plus running a radio station. And I don't know if that sounds like I'm making excuses for not doing this or just presenting the realities. And a lot of people are in this situation where I only have 24 hours in the day. Uh, what about that in terms of getting noticed and getting the message out there? Like I said, I've been doing this for a long, long time, just like you. And sure, I want the message out there. And yet at the same time, I don't have a staff that I could turn to and say, hey, could you do this, that, and the other thing? Because I don't have the resources at this time. I'm hoping soon to have them. But what are your thoughts in that regard to someone like myself that wants to be out there? I don't want to be number one. I just want to be one of the ones that is heard.
I think you can use three things to push yourself forward.
Hmm.
One is other people's time. The second one is other people's money. And the third one is other people's knowledge. You're already using that latter one by having guests on your show that are something that people want to listen to. So the other two are the other two parts that put some jet fuel to things. So how can you get other people's time? Well, you can do it one of two ways. One is you can pay for it, or number two, you can have some volunteers doing it.
Hmm.
And that's something that is always possible. Other people's money, that's the hardest thing to get.
Yeah.
And that's where, advertising revenue and other factors come in. But that's the hardest one to get. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because that could take days and days and days to talk to a strategy on that.
What about the School of Hard Knocks? I have been an advocate for people getting educated. And I'm never referring specifically to formal education, whether grade school, high school, college, etc. But recognizing that you're in a school already because you're alive and you're having learning experiences because you're alive.
Well, the School of Hard Knocks is a great teacher, but it's the hardest teacher because it gives the test before it gives the lesson.
Wow.
And so the problem is you're always being tested before you're given the lesson.
Yeah.
And that's the difficulty of the School of Hard Knocks.
Hmm.
I've always remembered one of my professors who used to say, remember the Hindenburg. It's better to learn from other people's mistakes than your own. So, I wouldn't want to repeat the problems of the Hindenburg, thank you. I would sooner learn from those mistakes rather than to repeat them myself.
You know, you bring that up, and I remember not just seeing what happened at Lakehurst, New Jersey, but just the development of this type of travel, and thought, wow, that would be really cool to do, to travel just leisurely, almost like if you were on the ocean on a cruise ship, just taking your time. You're not rushing anywhere. You're relaxed. You get to see things from a perspective you wouldn't ordinarily see. That just seemed to me really fun. Although my favorite, of course, is the train. Same kind of observation from looking out the windows, but the other part of it is I don't have to think about making sure that I stay in my lane, and I get to walk around the train. I get to meet new people and hear their stories and talk to them about what's going on in their lives. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about traveling in general. On a cruise ship, do the same kind of thing as well. But boy, flying in an airship, uh, not so much a hot air balloon because there aren't as many comforts there. How about you? What really sort of excites you in terms of not so much travel, in terms of the type of travel, but in terms of places where you would interact,
Well,
mingle?
I love to be on the stage. I
Hmm.
love to communicate with several hundred people at once and excite them. I love to take them to that next era. And then
Mm.
I love afterwards to coach them and help them get to the next level as well. That to me is something that's very important is that people need a mentor in their life. And I think first exciting them and then taking them along is something that I love to do.
That is cool. I have myself have not done a lot of stage work. Well, I guess I should rephrase that. In front of a live audience in a large room, auditorium, etc. This, I guess, would be the second best. This is a stage of sorts, and I've always enjoyed it. I've done a little performing here in Santa Barbara, where I happen to live right now, and being up on stage, I didn't feel afraid or what have you because the plus for me was that I was a part of an ensemble, and I had a lot of other people around me, and I wasn't the lead or anything. I was one of the supporting people, but still, it was like this is great. I don't. I'm up here with friends. I'm up here with a family. This is so exciting. But I know there are a lot of people who, not being on a physical stage, they have a lot of challenges with being around people. Have you had interactions with folks who are shy in that way, and have you discovered maybe and tried to help them to overcome that so that they can mingle and learn? It's kind of like what James Redfield said in his Celestine prophecy about we have messages for each other, and if they're not out there mingling, they're not getting those messages.
I think social anxiety is a very realistic thing.
Hmm.
Fear of speaking is a very realistic thing. But all those are manageable and all those can be overcome. I think the more a person lives on the edge of their comfort zone, the better it is for them. I think life begins on the edge of your comfort zone, not in your comfort zone. And I think that's where people have the biggest fall off and fallacy in their lives. They have to realize that when they push themselves a little bit, that's when they truly live in their comfort zones. So social anxiety, something people can overcome, and there's many proven techniques for doing so. Speaking, fear of speaking can be overcome. There's it's been said that the two greatest fears of mankind are fear of dying and fear of speaking. So you can picture that. You're equally afraid of dying as speaking. So that is something that's a major problem. But
Yeah.
uh, can it be overcome? Yes. But anybody in a situation can use that situation of fear as fuel and push themselves to greater heights as a result of that. You know, that fuel is something that's very important so that when you're giving a keynote transformational speech, it pushes you to even do a better one.
Hmm. You know, As I was growing up in this industry back when I started in 1979, a long time ago, I was told to learn everything about every area of the broadcast industry, and specifically radio. And then after a few years, if you want to specialize, you can start leaning in that direction. And so I did. Of course, the job that I was given kind of helped. As operations manager, I was also doing the same job as everybody else in the building. I was on the air, I was putting the programming on the air as well, and so forth. And I remember hearing this phrase, it's not who you know, it's what you know. And there's some truth to that, but nowadays, as you put it, it's not who you know, it's who knows you as the expert. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Exactly. Knowledge is something that's pretty well been captured by the internet and AI. If you want to know most things about an area, you can put some commands in ChatGPT and become pretty cognizant about it in about 2 minutes. So, knowledge has pretty well been surpassed by the technical wonders that are out there. When I was a boy, if you had an Encyclopedia Britannica, that was pretty amazing because there was a lot of knowledge in there. Well, that's been far surpassed by the wonders that are on the internet and now ChatGPT, which harnesses them within an instant. So it's not, knowledge is not something that's hard to get. It's very easy to get.
Hmm.
Uh, who you know is not that important anymore because um, there are people you want to know and people you don't want to know. So, what people know about you and being the authority in an area really draws people to you and transcends you from everybody else. You being the authority is you have a unique educational proposition that transcends everybody else so they cannot compete with you. You are different from everybody else. So even if there's somebody else in the same category, you are different. You are the authority in your own niche, in your own way.
It's funny, I've had some people come to me and ask me questions based upon my experience in this business. And believe it or not, I somehow, for a moment, I revert back to the child and going, uh, okay, let me see if I can ferret this out for you, because I suddenly, for some reason, I feel like, no, I'm the wrong person. You need to talk to somebody with more experience. I don't know how much more experience I can get without, having the ability to share it. And then I shift and I start sharing with them, and I say, these are my observations. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying this is what I've used. And if you want to use it, go for it. You don't have to use bits and pieces of it as well. And that's kind of what we do here on this program. Doctor, we lay out what I like to call this smorgasbord table, which, by the way, every interview, that table gets longer. We ask people to come up and partake of what we've placed on that table. Now, there are going to be some who aren't going to want to partake at all, but there are going to be some who, okay, I'm not cottoning too much to Lycka's stuff, but hey, over here, there's this person. So they'll take that and they'll walk away. And then I say, and come back because you will be changed by whatever it is that you take from that table. So come back and maybe tomorrow or the next day or the next week, Dr. Lycka's information will start to resonate with you. It'll start to click. And so I'm wondering how important it is for not only you and I as hosts, as bringing people on, talking about what they have to say. The guests are sort of, shall we say, repeating what the previous guest and the previous guest and the previous guest says. How important is that repetition to the listener, to the viewer?
I think it's important to have repetition, but even more so, I think it's important to never be boring because if you're boring, that's the surest way to turn people off and change the channel. So you want to make sure that everybody grabs you grab their attention and keep it there.
Mm.
Because if you don't grab their attention, in your area, I know there's at least 100 channels people can turn to right away.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to grab their attention and keep them there.
And what is your first best suggestion for doing that for folks?
I use a method that used to be used very common. You'll remember the person's name, but he used to do a show called The Rest of the Story. Do you remember that old show from the radio days, the old radio days?
Paul Harvey with
You
the rest of the story.
you've got it. So what was so unique about that show? Well, you were always waiting for the rest of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't turn the channel because you had to listen to the rest of the story. Otherwise, you wouldn't be complete.
Right.
So I always use that method in my show so that I keep the rest of the story coming and keep people on cliffhangers to the end. And that is why I try to bring that together. People ask me, who is Dr. L? And I say, well, I'm the unshakable Dr. L. And if you know a little bit about my story, you know why I'm unshakable. But I'm the doctor of happiness, positivity, possibilities, and passion.
Mm.
So those are the things that embody me and make people want to come to me and listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they'll come to me. And for you, they'll come to you for a different reason, Reverend Dr. D.
Let me ask you in that regard, how important is it to stay abreast of all of the current events that are going on in the world uh, in light of both yours and my optimistic and positive attitude? I tell people I do my best not to listen to the news or read those kinds of things on social media and so forth because I already know, based upon the study of history that I have done, of man's inhumanity to man. It's been going on since Cain and Abel, and it's going to continue on for a little while anyway. So why do I need to bombard my brain?
Well, I had the pleasure of listening to the person that was the lead of the Spokane newspaper. And as you know, in the world, most newspapers are dying,
Hmm.
but his is growing. And his secret is a couple of things. First of all, he doesn't concentrate on negative news. That's banned from his newspaper. Okay.
Hmm.
Secondly, he increased the number of crossword puzzles and the number of comics. Okay. Doesn't that tell you a little bit about the needs of this world more than anything else? The world needs relief. It doesn't need more news.
Yeah.
You're bombarded by news 24/7.
Yeah.
Even the news stations are dying and laying off people left, right, and center. Why? Because there's too much news.
Yeah. People are exhausted. I'm exhausted from that standpoint. Couldn't agree with you more on that. Although you do know, and we've already dispelled one myth that it isn't true anymore, and the other one is, if it bleeds, it leads. Nowadays, if it bleeds, I don't want to watch it because
Well, and
everything
I
bleeds.
think what you have now is people are just inundated to the point they're immune to it.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell when I read about the war in the Ukraine whether there's something new or something old.
Yeah.
This is the same story that's been going on for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the attacks going on with Gaza. Are these new? Are these old? Everything is so, that 24-hour news cycle has made it such that you're getting rehashed all the time. And
Yeah.
it's very hard to tell what's new and what's old.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. We're talking with Dr. Alan Lycka here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan and the author of Rule the Game. And I certainly hope that you folks are learning how to do just that, rule your game, and the secret to living a fantastic life. And then pillars of success. Talk to us before we wrap things up here. How many pillars are there, and can you tell us what they are?
You know, there's an infinite number, but the number one is to deal with the demons in your life. The number one is to make sure you overcome the things that will destroy you. And my pillar of success was back in 2003. I had a neurological problem, a right foot drop, and I went to see a neurologist, and he said, "Dr. Lycka, get your affairs in order. You have 6 months to live. You have ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease." Now,
Yikes.
if you realize anything, it's well past that time now, and I'm still alive and I'm still thriving. So that is something that you have to realize, that even a death sentence is not a death sentence if you look at it properly and seek out the proper diagnosis. And, doctors are not always right. Doctors do not always have it right. And mine was, my death sentence turned out to be a blessing, because every day I put up my feet on the ground and say, "Oh my God, I have another day to make a difference. I have another day to make the world a better place. I have another day to help people live a fantastic life."
Well, I'll tell you, I can honestly say, by the way, that aspect of living a fantastic life, if you are, tell someone you're living a fantastic life. And then they may ask you, well, how are you doing that? And then you get to tell them your story. Just like you, Dr. Lycka, have been sharing your story with us here on the program. And this program is, of course, called Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And to that end, I have written a book called Choices, 5 Steps for Life. We hope you'll get a copy. It's available on Amazon. And there's also a link at richarddugan.com. I hope that you'll go there as well as we continue here with Dr. Alan Stephen Lycka here on Tell Me Your Story. Well, as we come to wrap up this particular program here with Dr. Alan Lycka, we are so thankful for you being here on the program. And I certainly hope that folks will go to your website. And to that end, because we want to be linked to it, what website shall we send them to so they can find out about you, the work you're doing, the books that you have available, and all that is Dr. Alan Stephen Lycka?
The best thing to do is go to Dr. Alan Lycka. That's DrAllen, Lycka, Lycka.com. And be sure to check me out, sign up for my Golden Pearls. My two books, Rule the Game and The Secrets to Living a Fantastic Life, are both available on Amazon, the biggest bookseller in the world. Make sure you check them out, because you will enjoy them.
Well, we'll encourage folks to go to the website because we'll be linked. We'll have that link at the with the podcast as well as the video cast that they'll be watching as well. And we certainly thank you for being a part of the work that we're doing here to try to change the world. When I was a kid, they said, "Don't do that; it's too big." And I'm now 65 and say, "No, it's not." It's not that I'm going to do it all at once. It's a little at a time because I'm not alone. You're there trying to change the world as well through the work that you're doing, and we're very appreciative of that. So thank you for being a part of us.
Thank you for having me, Reverend Dr. D.
I do have three final questions that I ask all of my guests. I'll ask those of you in just a moment, but first I want to thank you for listening to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. And it's streaming live at all of those times at richarddugan.com with podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. I hope that in either case you will subscribe and click notification. We also ask that if you would like a copy of Choices 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon as well in paperback and hardcover and Kindle with Audible soon to be released, as well as leaving us a tip at PayPal. And if you go to richarddugan.com, at the top of the page, there are two links. One to Amazon for choices, the other to PayPal for a tip, if you will. And then finally, we ask that you take some time during this, the decade of perfect vision, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place that no one else can get to and listen to that still small voice. With all that being said, we move to our final three questions. The first of which you sort of answered already, but I'm going to ask it in the context of this format. Who is Alan Stephen Lycka?
Well, Dr. Alan Stephen Lycka is also known as the famous, unshakable Dr. L. The word famous came from the people at Apple because I have 7 million listeners on my show every month. Unshakable came about because of the fact that of my life's history, I have become unshakable, much like the deep oak tree with the deep roots, and nothing shakes me. So that's why I'm the unshakable Dr. L. But I'm known for happiness, positivity, possibilities, and passion. I'm the president and CEO of the International Order of Fantastic Professionals. I'm author, speaker, and mentor of the year by another group called the IAOTP. So I've literally been able to transcend many boundaries, and I help people achieve that happiness, positivity, possibilities, and passion.
What gets you up in the morning?
You know, I was told in 2003, Dr. Lycka, get your affairs in order. You have 6 months to live. Every day is a blessing. Every day is a day I'm living on borrowed time, but it's a day that I can make a difference for everybody that I meet. So it's very important I do that.
And finally, what was your best day?
That's a difficult one, but it's the next day I'm going to have. So there you are. Every day is magical, but I haven't had that best day because it's going to come tomorrow.
Well, once again, Dr. Alan Stephen Lycka, thank you so much for being a part of Tell Me Your Story. It's really a pleasure. And I hope that we get to have you back again to continue this conversation. I love having folks come back to share more of what they have to share with our listening audience and viewing audience. I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.